The origami crane took 17 folds. I counted each one, creasing the Walmart receipt between my thumb and forefinger until the paper became something else. A bird that could exist nowhere but in my hands. The dashboard of my white Sprinter van was lined with 42 others, each bird folded from trash receipts and junk mail. My phone rang. Washington, D.C. area code. I set the crane with the others and answered. Mr. Graham Sutherland? Yes. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, United States Patent and Trademark Office. You co-founded Drummond Sutherland Engineering in 1998? I did. Your signature appears on the original filing for patent number US 8847392B2. Solid state battery cathode interface technology. Are you aware this patent has generated $840 million in licensing revenue? $840 million. The number sat between us like a detonation waiting to happen. I was bought out in 2006, I said. $47,000. The buyer claimed sole credit as inventor. By Blake Drummond? Yes. The preliminary application is dated March 17, 2004. Your wet signature is on page 3. Your handwriting is in the technical margins. The waterproof case came out from under my bed. My hands shook when I worked the latches. I pulled out 43 technical drawings on vellum. The ones I rescued from the dumpster behind the lab in 2006. Mr. Sutherland, the preliminary application shows your technical annotations in the margins. Do you still have the source materials? The original calculations? I have the original drawings. My notebooks from the development period. Every calculation. The line went quiet. I counted 3 seconds before she spoke again. This is prosecutable fraud. Mr. Staub. Sutherland. I looked at the drawings in my lap. My signature in the title block. My Navy service number in the header. The date stamp nobody could fake. I steadied my hands against the drawings. The paper stopped shaking before I did. The math does not lie. If you're still here, you'll love what's next, so hit subscribe. I met Blake Drummond at an aerospace conference in Denver. March 1997. The ballroom at the Hyatt Regency had 200 engineers listening to presentations on battery cathode interfaces. I was 31 years old, recent engineering degree from Arizona State, single father to 8-year-old Marissa. The Navy had taught me submarine electrical systems. The degree taught me the math behind them. My presentation covered ion migration problems in solid-state batteries. Technical, dry. I showed the differential equations most researchers were getting wrong. Blake found me at the reception afterward. 37 years old, MBA from the same school, medical device sales background. He wore a suit that cost more than my monthly rent. That cathode interface problem you described, he said. You know how to solve it? Maybe. The tolerance requirements are 0.03 millimeters. Nobody has manufacturing precision for that. But you could design it? Yes, he smiled. I can sell anything if the engineering is sound. You build it. I'll find the buyers. Equal partners. I hesitated. Partnership meant sharing credit, sharing control. But I had an 8-year-old daughter and $42,000 in student loans. The Navy pension covered rent, not much else. 50-50 split? I asked. Your technical expertise, my business development. Drummond, Sutherland, Engineering. We shook hands in the hotel ballroom. His palm was soft, no calluses, no scars from soldering burns or prototype assembly cuts. I should have noticed. We founded the company in 1998, 12,000 square feet in Phoenix's industrial corridor north of the airport. The facility had a clean room for prototype assembly, materials testing lab with electron microscopes, and offices Blake insisted we needed for investor meetings. I spent my days in the lab. Blake handled investor relations, permit applications, equipment leasing. The early years showed collaboration. He understood how to translate my technical explanations into language investors could understand. I built prototypes. He brought in capital. Carl Winters joined us in 2000. 55 years old, career lab technician, Navy background like mine. He wore thick bifocals and moved with the careful precision of someone who had documented experiments across 35 years. You keep notebooks? He asked me his first day. Yes. Bound volumes, numbered pages. Navy standard? Yes. Carl nodded. Then we will work well together. He started his own notebooks immediately. Black, hardcover volumes with pre-numbered pages. Every experiment logged in permanent ink. Dates, ambient temperature, materials, lot numbers, test results to 4 decimal places. Each page signed by both of us. Everything documented. Everything signed. That's how truth survives, he told me once. Blake married Rebecca in 2001. She was 41, forensic accountant background, sharp eyes that seemed to calculate the value of everything they saw. The wedding was at the Scottsdale resort. 200 guests. Open bar. I went alone. Marissa stayed with my mother. Blake introduced Rebecca as our new CFO at the next board meeting. She'll help us scale, he said. Professional financial management. Rebecca sat beside him during investor presentations after that. She restructured our accounting, created performance review systems, generated quarterly reports that showed our progress in language I barely recognized. And Blake started changing how he described the work. In board meetings, he called himself the innovator. I was the builder who executed his designs. Investors never met me. Blake claimed I was too technical, made people uncomfortable with detailed explanations they could not follow. You're the expert in the lab, he said. I'm the face of the company. That's how partnerships work. I focused on the battery problem, the solid-state cathode interface degradation that had stopped commercial development for decades. The tolerance requirements were impossible. 0.03 millimeters. Manufacturing precision that didn't exist yet. I worked 80-hour weeks starting in 2003. Coffee from the vending machine. Sandwiches from the gas station. The fluorescent lights in the lab hummed. I stopped noticing. Carl documented everything. His notebook from March 2003 shows me running cathode tests at 0600 while Blake attended an investor conference in San Diego. April 2003, same pattern. May 2003, June 2003. Graham working solo, Carl wrote. Blake traveling for business development. Marissa was 15 by then. High school soccer, piano recitals. Parent-teacher conferences I missed because the ion migration calculations required another iteration, another test, another 18-hour day. Why are you always at work? She asked me once. I am solving a problem. What problem? The cathode interface degradation in solid-state batteries. She stared at me. 15 years old, and I was speaking a language she did not understand. I was wrong about a lot of things. The solution came in February 2004, 3:47 in the morning. I had been running differential equations for 11 hours straight. The whiteboard was covered with calculations. Coffee cups lined my workstation. The ceramic electrolyte composition needed a specific crystalline structure. 0.03 millimeter grain size, sintering temperature of 1,400 degrees Celsius, plus or minus 2 degrees. The tolerance was insane. Nobody would believe it could be manufactured, but the math worked. I spent 6 weeks verifying. Carl witnessed every test. His notebooks document 847 pages of calculations across 4 bound volumes, every prototype iteration, every failed approach, every 3 a.m. solution. Blake was in Chicago, then Boston, then San Francisco. Raising capital, he said, building partnerships. I filed the preliminary patent application on March 17, 2004, 14:47 Eastern Standard Time. The USPTO website confirmed receipt. My signature went on page 3, subsection J, paragraph 4. The technical specifications included my handwritten calculations in the margins. 0.03 millimeter tolerance. Differential equations governing ion migration at the molecular level. Math that required calculus Blake had squeaked through with a C- at Arizona State. He called me that evening. Patents filed? He asked. Yes. Preliminary application submitted this afternoon. Good. Now we can start licensing talks. We, partner. The words should have felt right. We had started this together 6 years earlier in that Denver hotel ballroom, but Blake's hands were still soft, manicured nails, no scars from prototype work. He had never touched the cathode assemblies, never run the tolerance tests, never spent 80 hours calculating grain structures. Carl witnessed the patent filing. His notebook entry from March 17, 2004, page 127, Graham files preliminary application solo while Blake attends investor meetings in San Francisco. Cathode interface solution achieved through Graham's calculations. Blake not present for technical work. I dismissed the doubt. Exhaustion from the 80-hour weeks. Isolation from focusing too hard on the problem. Blake handled the business side. I handled the engineering. That was the partnership. My Navy dive watch showed 23:43. The lab was empty, except for me, and the prototypes lined up on the testing bench. 47 iterations before the solution. Carl's notebooks documented every single one. The fluorescent lights hummed. Outside, Phoenix was dark. Marissa was at my mother's house, probably asleep, probably wondering why her father missed another soccer game. I remembered Blake's words from that evening. We did it, partner. But his hands had never assembled a single prototype. His calculations existed only in the investor presentations where he described my technical work as his designs, my solutions as his concepts brought to life by the senior technician. I locked the lab at midnight. The preliminary patent application sat in the USPTO database with my signature on page 3, my handwriting in the margins, my math that Blake could never reproduce. The partnership would preserve both our legacies. I believed that in March 2004, I was wrong. The April 15th board meeting started at 9 a.m. Blake stood at the head of the mahogany table in the conference room we'd rented downtown. 6 investors sat along the sides, legal pads open, pens ready. I sat at the far end. Nobody looked at me. The cathode interface breakthrough represents a paradigm shift in energy storage, Blake said. He clicked to the next slide. My differential equations filled the screen. The grain structure breakthrough came from the vision I laid out in our original proposal. My differential equations filled the screen. I opened my mouth, closed it. The equations came from my notebooks, March 2004, 3:47 in the morning. Blake had been in San Francisco. One investor raised his hand. "Can you walk us through the tolerance requirements?" Blake gestured toward me without turning. "Graham can explain the technical execution. He built what I designed." I opened my mouth, closed it. The equations on the screen came from my notebooks. March 2004, 3:47 in the morning. Blake had been in San Francisco. "The tolerance is 0.03 millimeters," I said. "Ceramic electrolyte requires specific crystalline structure. Sintering temperature, 1,400 degrees Celsius, plus or minus 2 degrees. The investor wrote something down. Blake smiled. "As you can see, Graham handles the implementation details. The conceptual framework was mine." The meeting lasted 90 minutes. Blake talked for 87 of them. Rebecca joined us in April 2004. She sat beside Blake during the next investor presentation, laptop open, creating what she called performance tracking systems. "We need formal evaluations," she told the board. "Professional documentation of team contributions." She scheduled my first review for May. Her office had glass walls. I could see Carl at his workstation, running tolerance tests on the latest prototype. Rebecca opened a folder. "Blake has expressed concerns about your communication style." "What concerns?" "You tend to overwhelm people with technical jargon. Investors need accessible explanations." I thought about the board meeting. My 90 seconds explaining tolerances, while Blake took credit for the conceptual framework. "I explained the math," I said. "That is what I do. But you make people uncomfortable." Blake says you can't translate technical work into business value. Blake said. Blake expressed Blake's concerns. I left her office with a written evaluation documenting my communication deficiencies. The folder went into my personnel file. I went back to the lab. Carl looked up from his notebook. "How was the review?" "Rebecca thinks I overwhelm people." He didn't respond, just wrote the date and time in his notebook. May 18, 2004. Graham returns from performance review. Continues tolerance testing. The marketing materials changed in June. The website listed Blake's photo above the company description. Founder and Chief Innovation Officer. The battery technology was described as his breakthrough concept brought to commercial viability. My name, Senior Technician, small text at the bottom. I called Blake's office. His assistant said he was in meetings all week. I sent an email. He replied 2 days later, "This is just positioning for investors. You know how this works." I didn't know how this worked. Partnership meant equal credit. Shared recognition. The patent had both our names. Except Blake's signature was first. His name led in every presentation. My calculations became his vision executed by the technical staff. The pattern continued through summer. July brought investor tours. Blake showed them the lab through the glass partition. They pointed at the electron microscope, the clean room, the testing bench. Carl didn't look up from his work. "This is where we bring concepts to reality," Blake said. "Not where I spent 3 years solving the cathode problem. Where we brought his concepts to reality." I met Marissa for dinner that month. 16 years old, working summer hours at a marketing firm, dating someone she wanted me to meet. Tyler Drummond walked into the restaurant with her. Blake's son, though I recognized the soft handshake before I knew his name. "Dad, this is Tyler." We shook hands. 18, business degree track at Arizona State, consultant internship for a tech firm. "Marissa says you work in batteries," Tyler said. "I co-founded the company. Drummond, Sutherland Engineering. Dad says you handle the manufacturing side." The technical execution. Marissa looked at her menu. She knew. She'd been to the lab, seen my notebooks, watched me run the calculations Blake couldn't follow. I developed the cathode interface technology, I said. Tyler nodded politely. Dad mentioned he designed the breakthrough. Said you were great at building what he envisioned. The waiter came, Marissa ordered quickly. The conversation moved to Tyler's consulting work, their upcoming trip to Scottsdale, the new apartment they were considering. I paid the check. Marissa hugged me goodbye in the parking lot. You seem stressed, Dad. Work is complicated. Tyler says you just don't get how companies work now. You're too stuck in the technical stuff. She pulled back. You know Blake really values your contributions. I drove back to my apartment. The technical drawings were spread across my kitchen table. 43 sheets of vellum with my signature in the title blocks. My Navy service number in the headers. Calculations in the margins that proved every tolerance requirement. History remembers visionaries, not technicians. Blake had said that once. I thought he was joking. Carl's notebooks documented the shift. July 2004 entries showed Blake attending conferences while I ran prototype iterations. August entries showed the same pattern. September, October, November. Blake traveling for business development. Graham working solo in lab. The aerospace manufacturer contacted us in March 2005. Preliminary licensing discussions for medical device applications. Blake and Rebecca, new manufacturers, were expressing serious interest. Blake scheduled an emergency board meeting. Rebecca presented financial analysis showing the company was pre-revenue with technical debt. The manufacturing tolerances made scaling impossible without professional management. We need to restructure before closing major deals, Blake told the board. Bring in experienced operations leadership. I sat at the end of the table, the same seat I'd occupied for a year. The technology is proven, I said. We have working prototypes. Blake looked at Rebecca. She opened another folder. Graham, your performance reviews show ongoing challenges with team collaboration. Investors have expressed concerns about communication gaps. Which investors? The ones who never met me because Blake said I made them uncomfortable? I invented the cathode interface solution, I said. Blake's expression shifted to something like pity. You executed my design concept. That's different from invention. The board members looked at their legal pads. Nobody met my eyes. Rebecca distributed packets. We're proposing a retirement package. Fair compensation for Graham's contributions while positioning the company for growth. The number was in bold on page 3, $47,000. For my 50% stake in a company Blake and Rebecca knew had manufacturers expressing serious interest. This is fraud, I said. Blake leaned forward. Graham, you're exhausted. You've been working too hard. These paranoid accusations are exactly why we need professional leadership. Rebecca closed her laptop. The offer is generous given current company valuation. We'll need an answer by January. I looked at the board members, the investors who'd watched Blake take credit for 18 months, who'd never questioned why the inventor couldn't explain his own differential equations. Nobody said anything. December turned to January. Carl found me in the lab on New Year's Day. I was packing my workstation, calculator, coffee mug, framed photo of 8-year-old Marissa. You signed? He asked. I cannot fight this. No resources. No support. Blake controls the board. Carl's hands shook when he opened his notebook. I documented everything, every experiment, every prototype. Your work, not his. It does not matter. Rebecca built a paper trail. Performance reviews, board complaints, legal justification. I am not destroying my notebooks. Blake can pressure all he wants. 8 years of my life fit in a cardboard box. The math didn't help with that calculation. Blake found me in the parking lot, January 5th, 2006, Tuesday afternoon. Temperature 58 degrees. You made the right choice, he said. I loaded the box into my truck. Graham, you have to understand. You were the builder. I was the innovator. That's all the history will say. I climbed into the driver's seat. The check was in my wallet. $47,000. I'd spent more than that on prototype materials. Blake tapped the truck window. The non-compete is 3 years. Stay away from battery work. And sign these inventor assignment forms. Just a formality for the licensing deals. I was too exhausted to read the fine print. Too broken to fight. I signed where he pointed, not understanding I was signing away my name on the invention. I drove out of the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, Carl stood at the lab window holding his notebook. The truth was in those pages. 11 volumes, 8 years of work. Every calculation proving whose hands had actually built the future. Carl kept them all. 17 years passed. I moved between temporary jobs, living in the Sprinter van, watching Blake's company grow through news articles I collected in a waterproof case. The article was 3 pages into the Arizona Republic's business section. March 14, 2023. I spread the paper flat on the picnic table, creasing the edges with my palms. Blake Drummond stood in a ballroom at the Scottsdale resort, surrounded by executives in tuxedos. The caption, identified James Kovach, Tesla's VP of Technology Partnerships. A woman from GM, someone from Toyota's battery division. Blake wore a tuxedo that cost $3,000. His wrist showed a Patek Philippe watch. I knew the model. Nautilus. 18-karat white gold. $180,000. The headline read, Arizona Engineers Battery Breakthrough Powers Electric Future. I read the quote 3 times. As the inventor of this revolutionary technology, I am proud to power the future of sustainable transportation. This $340 million licensing agreement with Tesla represents validation of the vision I brought to solid-state battery development. The math was simple. $340 million from Tesla, $280 million from GM, $220 million from Toyota, $840 million total. My share of that should have been $420 million. I received $47,000. The Sprinter van's engine turned over on the 3rd try. I drove south on Scottsdale Road. The resort was 12 miles from the Walmart parking lot where I slept. The valet parking attendant looked at my van. White paint faded to gray. Rust spots on the wheel wells. 287,000 miles on the odometer. Sir, this entrance is for event guests. I am attending the licensing ceremony. He glanced at my flannel shirt. The fabric was worn thin at the elbows. My work boots had been resoled twice. The leather cracked along the toe boxes. The event is black tie, sir. I parked in the main lot, walked across the stone pathway to the resort entrance, through the glass doors, down the hall toward the ballroom. The doors were open, 12,000 square feet, crystal chandeliers, marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows showing pinnacle peak at sunset. A 40-foot screen displayed the Drummond Solutions logo. I walked past maybe 200 guests in evening wear, men in tuxedos, women in cocktail dresses. Everyone held champagne glasses, except me. Blake stood near the presentation stage, group of 8 executives around him. His salt and pepper hair was salon fresh. His hands moved as he talked, the Patek Philippe catching light from the chandelier. I walked across the marble floor. My boots made no sound. The executives' conversation stopped when I reached them. Blake turned. His expression went through confusion, recognition, concern. All in 2 seconds. Graham. His hand extended. I didn't know you were in town. I did not take his hand. You did not invent that battery. I did. James Kovach looked up from his phone. 2 other executives set down champagne glasses. 5 more turned toward us. Graham, this is not the place for. You know the cathode interface calculations. 0.03 millimeter tolerance. Explain them. Blake's smile held. I think you are confused about the development process. The vision was mine. The technical execution. Could you do that math with a calculator and a week? His jaw tightened. I counted 12 people within earshot now? 15, 20. Graham, you are embarrassing yourself. The preliminary patent filing is dated March 17, 2004. You were in San Francisco. I was in the lab running the cathode tests. Carl Winters documented every experiment. Blake looked at the executives. His expression shifted to something like pity, concern, performance. Graham had difficulties after leaving the company in 2006. He's been struggling with delusions about his contributions to our work. I saw Marissa across the ballroom. She stood with Tyler Drummond. Her cocktail dress was black. Simple. She looked down at her champagne glass. You are lying, I said. Blake signaled to someone behind me. 2 security guards in suits appeared at my elbows. This gentleman needs assistance finding his way out, Blake told them. His voice carried to the executives. Kind. Patient. The voice of someone dealing with a mentally unstable former employee. The guards took my arms. I kept my hands loose, my posture upright. No point in fighting. My signature is on the original filing, I said. Louder now. The string quartet stopped playing. Page 3, subsection J. My handwriting is in the margins. The guards walked me toward the doors. Blake returned to his conversation with Kovach. 3 executives turned away. 2 others checked their phones. The string quartet started playing again. Patent filing Use 8847392B2. March 17, 2004. Page 3, subsection J. Cathode interface calculations in my handwriting. The differential equations Blake cannot solve. Nobody responded. The valet brought my van around. He did not make eye contact when I climbed into the driver's seat. The resort disappeared in my rear-view mirror. Crystal chandeliers, black tie guests, Blake's Patek Philippe catching the light. I drove back to the Walmart parking lot. Parked in my usual spot in the northeast corner. The fluorescent lot lights hummed overhead. Inside the van, I opened the waterproof case, pulled out the technical drawings, 43 sheets of vellum with my signature in the title blocks, my Navy service number in the headers, the calculations that proved every tolerance requirement. I pulled out my notebook, black composition book, 98 pages filled. I turned to page 99 and wrote, March 14, 2023, 2001-17. Scottsdale Resort. Licensing ceremony. Witnesses, James the Kovach Tesla VP, Blake Drummond, Marissa Drummond, Tyler Drummond, approximately 80 automotive executives. I folded another crane from tonight's receipt. Number 44. The dashboard collection had taken 3 months to build. 17 folds, each one precise. The paper became something else in my hands. Something that could exist nowhere but here. 2 weeks after the Scottsdale ceremony, Dr. Tanaka's email arrived on a Tuesday morning. I was parked in my usual spot at the Walmart, northeast corner under the fluorescent lights. The subject line appeared on my phone screen at 6:47 a.m. Patent Audit Request, Use 8847392B2. I read it 3 times before my coffee went cold. 2 paragraphs. Professional language. She wanted to discuss discrepancies in the original filing documentation. Could I meet at her Phoenix office Thursday at 2 p.m.? I stared at the email. USPTO investigations happened, but so did scams targeting desperate people. The resort confrontation had been public. Witnesses. James Kovach from Tesla had seen Blake deflect technical questions. Maybe this was legitimate. Maybe it was someone fishing for information. I replied with one word. Yes. The waterproof case came out from under the van bed for the second time in 2 weeks. I checked the contents. 43 technical drawings on vellum, each one rolled tight, secured with rubber bands that had left indentations in the paper. My signature in the title blocks. Navy Service Number GB4472891 in the headers. Tolerance specifications in the margins, matching the patent filing exactly. Thursday arrived. The van's rust spots and faded paint didn't belong near glass and steel. I parked 3 blocks away from the federal building downtown and walked. The elevator took me to the 8th floor. Dr. Tanaka's office was at the end of the hall. She stood when I entered. 5'4", black pantsuit, white shirt buttoned to the collar. Reading glasses hung from a chain around her neck. Her handshake was firm. Mr. Sutherland, thank you for coming. The conference table held 6 color-coded folders. Blue, red, green, yellow, purple, black, each one labeled with dates and document categories. A laptop sat open beside them. 3 monitors displaying patent metadata analysis. I pulled Blake Drummond's educational transcripts, she said. She opened the yellow folder. Arizona State University, 1989 to 1993. Business Administration major. He withdrew from calculus, II, twice. Never completed differential equations. She slid the transcript across the table. Mathematics 210W, Mathematics 210W, Statistics 301 C-. I set the transcript down. Blake couldn't solve the differential equations in that patent. He'd never completed the prerequisite courses. The cathode interface calculations required differential equations, I said. Specifically, partial differential equations governing ion migration at the molecular level. She opened her laptop. The patent filing includes 17 pages of calculations. Can you explain how someone who withdrew from calculus, II, could perform this mathematics? He could not. She turned the laptop toward me. The screen showed the original patent filing. Page 3, subsection J. My signature in the inventor block. Graham Sutherland, March 17, 2004, 1447 EST. Your signature appears here on the preliminary application. The date is 14 months before Blake's final filing. I studied the scanned document. My handwriting filled the margins. 0.03 millimeter tolerance. Ceramic electrolyte grain structure. Sintering temperature. 1,000, 400 degrees Celsius, plus or minus 2. This is my work, I said. Dr. Tanaka opened the blue folder. The technical specifications in your preliminary application were submitted as PDF attachments. I ran a metadata analysis on those original files from our archives. Every document was created on a workstation named G.Sutherland, with timestamps from February through March 2004. She spread the printouts across the table. File properties, timestamps, author information. Every document traced back to my workstation at the Phoenix facility. Blake claimed sole inventor status when the final patent was filed in May 2005, she said. But your preliminary application predates his by 14 months. The vellum crackled when I unrolled the first drawing. 17 years in a waterproof case had yellowed the edges, but the ink remained sharp. I spread them across her conference table. Title blocks showing my signature. Navy service numbers. Tolerance callouts matching the patent specifications exactly. Dr. Tanaka photographed each drawing with her phone. Close-ups of the signatures, the Navy service numbers, the handwritten calculations. These contradict Blake's public presentations about the technology, she said. His presentations simplify the mathematics. The actual tolerances are more demanding. She examined drawing number 12, the cathode interface assembly with grain structure specifications. Blake testified to the patent office that he personally conducted the breakthrough experiments in March 2004. He was in San Diego. Investor conference. Can you prove that? My phone rang as I pulled onto I-10. Carl Winters. I hadn't spoken to him in 3 years. Graham, I heard about the patent investigation. How? Aerospace Community Network. Word travels. He paused. I have my notebooks, all 18 volumes. Every experiment from 2000 through 2018. I pulled into a gas station parking lot. Carl, those notebooks prove everything. I know. When can I bring them to Dr. Tanaka? We met at her office Friday morning. Carl carried 2 file boxes. 18 bound notebooks with black covers, pre-numbered pages, entries in permanent ink. He set them on the conference table beside my drawings. Dr. Tanaka opened Volume 4. March 17, 2004, page 127. Carl's handwriting filled the page. Date, time, ambient temperature, materials, lot numbers, test results to 4 decimal places. Both are signatures at the bottom. March 17, 2004, 0847 hours. Graham running cathode tests solo. Blake in San Diego at investor conference. Prototype iteration 47 successful. Grain structure tolerance achieved 0 millimeters. She photographed the notebook entry, then opened Blake's USPTO testimony file. March 17, 2004, personally conducted breakthrough cathode experiments. She set them side by side. This contradicts Blake's sworn testimony, Dr. Tanaka said. Carl adjusted his bifocals. If memory serves, that is exactly what happened. I logged every experiment. Graham worked alone that day. She photographed the page, then the next page, then the next. 16 months of entries documenting my solo work while Blake traveled for business development. These notebooks provide independent corroboration, she said. Witness signatures. Dates matching the patent timeline. Carl opened Volume 3. February 2004 entries showed the same pattern. Graham working solo. Blake at conferences. Prototype iterations documented with cross-references to my technical drawings. I kept Identical protocol notebooks at every job since 1985, Carl said. Navy service teaches you to document everything. 3 days after Carl's visit, Dr. Tanaka's phone rang. She put it on speaker when she saw the Tesla headquarters number. Dr. Tanaka, we need to discuss the Drummond patent licensing. James Kovach's voice. I recognized it from the resort. Go ahead, Mr. Kovach. Blake couldn't answer basic technical questions during due diligence. Every call, he deflected to business strategy instead of engineering specifics. Can you provide examples? I asked about cathode interface degradation rates. He talked about market positioning. I asked about manufacturing tolerances. He described our partnership vision. Kovach paused. I recorded 3 conference calls where he avoided every technical question. Did this concern you during licensing negotiations? It made me suspicious. Then Graham showed up at the Scottsdale ceremony making specific claims about the calculations. The math Blake couldn't explain. Dr. Tanaka made notes on her legal pad. Those recordings would be helpful for the investigation. I'll send them today. She opened the black folder after hanging up. Inside were Blake's sworn statements to the patent office. 5 pages of testimony claiming he personally designed the cathode interface solution, personally conducted the breakthrough experiments, personally authored the technical specifications. She arranged 5 folders in a line. Each one proved a different lie Blake had told the patent office. This is prosecutable fraud, Dr. Tanaka said. She closed the black folder. False statements to a federal agency. Misappropriation of intellectual property. Criminal patent fraud. What happens next? I refer the case to federal prosecutors. She aligned the folders into a neat stack. They'll decide whether to file charges. She stood, extended her hand across the table. Mr. Sutherland, my father was an electrical engineer. His employer stole 2 patents in 1987. The legal system failed him. She paused. It will not fail you. I drove back to the Walmart parking lot. The waterproof case sat empty on the passenger seat. The drawings were with Dr. Tanaka now. Evidence in a federal investigation. Carl's 18 notebooks filled 2 evidence boxes in her office. My signature appeared on 847 pages. Each one witnessed, each one dated, each one proving whose hands had actually built the future. The math does not lie. Neither does proper documentation. I folded another crane from tonight's gas station receipt. 17 folds, each one precise. The paper became something else in my hands, something that could testify in a court of law. Dr. Tanaka arranged color-coded folders on the prosecution table. Blue, red, green, yellow, purple, black, each one labeled with dates and document categories. She wore the same black pantsuit from our first meeting, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. Dark wood paneling covered the courtroom walls. 2 flags flanked the bench, American and Arizona State. The court reporter sat at her stenography machine, fingers resting on the keys. 84 seats filled the gallery behind us. Blake entered at 9:58. Charcoal suit, tailored. The Patek Philippe watch caught light from the overhead fluorescence. His attorney walked beside him, leather briefcase in hand. Blake smiled at someone in the gallery. His Patek Philippe caught the fluorescent light when he adjusted his cufflinks. I sat at the prosecution table in a suit I'd bought at Goodwill the day before. First time wearing formal clothes since 2006. The fabric smelled like someone else's life. Judge Patricia Marino entered at 1000 hours. Black robes, reading glasses. Former USPTO patent examiner Dr. Tanaka had told me. Her father was a machinist whose employer stole 2 patents in the 80s. Everyone stood. The bailiff announced the case number. We sat. Dr. Tanaka opened the blue folder. Your Honor, the preliminary patent application for US 8847392B2 was filed March 17, 2004. The inventor's signature on page 3 belongs to Graham Sutherland. She clicked her remote. The document filled the courtroom screen. My wet signature filled the inventor block. My handwriting covered the technical margins. 0.03 millimeter tolerance. Ceramic electrolyte grain structure. Blake's attorney stood. Your Honor, this was a collaborative partnership. Mr. Drummond provided the conceptual framework. Mr. Sutherland executed the technical details. Judge Moreno looked at Blake. Mr. Drummond, can you explain the cathode interface calculations from the patent you claim to have invented? Blake's left hand moved to his Patek Philippe. 3 taps on the watch face. Then he straightened. The vision was mine. The core innovation came from my systems thinking approach to battery architecture. That's not what I asked. Explain the tolerance requirements. The tolerances were demanding. 0.03 millimeters. We needed advanced manufacturing capabilities to achieve commercial viability. How did you calculate that tolerance? Blake's left hand tapped the Patek Philippe watch face. 3 times. I counted. The engineering team worked through multiple iterations. We refined the specifications based on prototype testing. You personally performed these calculations? I directed the technical development. My design concepts drove the innovation. Dr. Tanaka opened the yellow folder. Blake's Arizona State transcript filled the screen. Mathematics, 210, W Mathematics, 210, W Statistics, 31, C-. Mr. Drummond withdrew from calculus II twice, she said. Never completed differential equations. The cathode interface calculations require partial differential equations governing ion migration at the molecular level. How did you perform mathematics you never learned? Blake's face flushed. This is absurd. I had a team of engineers. The vision was what mattered. Did you personally understand the calculations? Understanding and innovation are different things. Edison didn't personally manufacture every light bulb. Jobs didn't write every line of code. Judge Moreno removed her reading glasses. Mr. Drummond, I spent 12 years examining patent applications at the USPTO. I'm asking if you can explain the technical specifications you claim to have invented. Blake's chair scraped backward. His attorney reached for his arm. Blake jerked away, stood. Graham was having a breakdown. Everyone saw it. He worked 80-hour weeks, couldn't communicate with investors, made people uncomfortable. Those notebooks are just grunt work. Any engineer could have executed my vision. The innovator deserves credit, not the technician who turned the screws. Dr. Tanaka opened the green folder. Carl's notebook from March 17, 2004 appeared on screen. Both signatures at the bottom of page 127. Carl Winters documented every experiment from 2000 through 2018. March 17, 2004, 08:47 hours. Graham running cathode tests solo. Blake in San Diego at investor conference. She opened Blake's sworn testimony file. Your USPTO statement claims you personally conducted the breakthrough experiments on March 17, 2004. His attorney guided him back to his chair. Blake sat, hands gripping the edge of the defense table. Tyler Drummond to the witness stand, Judge Moreno said. Tyler walked past his father without looking at him. His hands shook when he placed them on the Bible. The bailiff administered the oath. Dr. Tanaka approached the witness stand. "Mr. Drummond, did your father discuss Graham Sutherland's departure from the company?" "Yes." "What did he say?" Tyler's voice dropped. The court reporter leaned forward. "He said he managed Graham out before Graham realized what the patent was worth." "When did he say this?" "Last year. After I started working in patent law, we argued about business ethics. I'd begun recording our conversations because his stories about the company's founding kept changing. I wanted to understand what really happened." Blake's attorney objected. Judge Marino overruled. Tyler produced his phone. The audio played through the courtroom speakers. I didn't know Tyler had recorded that conversation. Blake didn't either. Blake's voice filled the room. "You don't understand how business works. Graham was brilliant, but he couldn't see the bigger picture. I built the company around his invention. I deserved the majority. The visionaries write history, not the technicians." The recording stopped. Tyler stepped down from the witness stand. He sat in the gallery 3 rows behind his father. Marissa Drummond to the witness stand. My daughter walked to the front of the courtroom. She wore a gray dress. Professional, conservative. Marissa kept her eyes on the floor tiles. Gray squares, white grout. Anything but the prosecution table. Dr. Tanaka opened a folder. "You signed an affidavit supporting Blake Drummond's performance complaints against your father in 2006? "Yes." "Did you read Carl Winter's laboratory notebooks before signing?" Marissa's voice dropped. The court reporter leaned forward. "No. The notebooks document your father's sole technical leadership for 18 months. 847 pages. Why didn't you review them?" "I trusted Blake's version. I thought my father was becoming unstable." "You signed an affidavit without reviewing contradicting documentation." "Yes." Marissa stepped down. She sat beside Tyler. Neither of them looked at Blake. Judge Moreno removed her reading glasses, set them on the bench beside her coffee cup. "Mr. Drummond, you have committed prosecutable fraud against the Federal Patent Office. You defrauded Mr. Sutherland of his life's work through false statements to a federal agency. This court finds your testimony not credible and your conduct egregious." Blake stood. "Your Honor, I built that company. I raised the capital. I negotiated the licensing deals. Graham couldn't have done any of that. But you couldn't have invented the technology. The mathematics prove it. The notebooks prove it. Your own son's recording proves it." Judge Marino signed the verdict document. "This court orders criminal prosecution under Title 18, United States Code, Section 1WO. All assets derived from the fraudulent patent are subject to forfeiture. Restitution hearing is scheduled for 90 days from today." Blake's attorney gathered his papers. Blake didn't move, his eyes fixed on the Patek Philippe. The second hand swept past the 12. Again. The gallery emptied. James Kovach from Tesla approached Dr. Tanaka near the prosecution table. I stayed seated, watching Blake's attorney guide him toward the exit. Carl appeared beside me. His 18 notebooks were still arranged on the evidence table. "Every page signed," he said. "Every calculation witnessed. That's how truth survives." I looked at the notebooks. 18 volumes. 8 years of work. The documentation that couldn't be erased or rewritten or claimed by someone else. "Thank you," I said. Carl adjusted his bifocals. "Navy standard protocol. Document everything. Sign everything. That's what they taught us." Blake passed our table on his way out. He didn't look at me. Didn't look at Tyler or Marissa in the gallery. Just followed his attorney through the courtroom doors. Dr. Tanaka gathered her color-coded folders. The restitution hearing will determine the financial recovery. Federal prosecutors will handle the criminal case separately. How long? I asked. Criminal trial, maybe 18 months. Restitution could be faster if he agrees to settlement. I stood, straightened my Goodwill suit jacket. The fabric still smelled like someone else's life. But the verdict was mine. The documentation was mine. The truth was mine. Outside the courthouse, the afternoon sun was bright. Too bright after 3 hours under fluorescent lights. I walked to my van in the parking garage. The waterproof case sat empty on the passenger seat. The drawings were evidence now. Dr. Tanaka's color-coded folders. Blue for my original work. Red for Blake's false claims. Green for independent corroboration. I climbed into the driver's seat. Started the engine. The dashboard collection of origami cranes numbered 43, each one folded from receipts and junk mail. 17 folds, precise creases, paper that became something else. The math does not lie. Neither does proper documentation. I drove back to the Walmart parking lot, my usual spot in the northeast corner. The fluorescent lot lights would hum overhead tonight, same as always. But the verdict was real. The notebooks were real. The truth was documented in 18 volumes of Carl's handwriting and my technical drawings and metadata timestamps that Blake could never explain away. I pulled out my notebook. Black composition book, 98 pages filled. I turned to a fresh page and wrote the date, the courtroom number, Judge Marino's verdict, Blake's inability to explain the differential equations he claimed to have invented. Everything documented. Everything signed. That's how truth survives. The restitution hearing started at 900 hours. 3 months had passed since the fraud verdict. I sat in the courtroom gallery wearing the same Goodwill suit. The fabric felt different after dry cleaning. Stiffer collar, sharper creases, same cheap fabric underneath. My notebook was open on my lap. Blank, page ready. 2 forensic accountants set up at the prosecution table. Laptops, projection screens, color-coded binders matching Dr. Tanaka's organizational system. 20 minutes of cables and testing. Blake entered at 9:55. Standard charcoal suit. No Patek Philippe. The watch had been seized as evidence 3 months ago during the fraud trial. His wrists looked bare, exposed. His salt and pepper hair showed gray roots growing out. The salon appointments had stopped. Judge Moreno took the bench at 1000 hours exactly. The lead forensic accountant approached the projection screen. Sarah Chen, CP. A credentials after her name. She clicked her remote. A spreadsheet filled the wall. Your Honor, we've traced all revenue derived from patent use 884739 2B2 from 2018 through present. The Tesla licensing agreement appeared. $340 million. Payment schedule showing quarterly installments through 2034. Royalty structure of 3.2% of gross battery unit sales. General Motors licensing, Chen continued. The screen changed. $280 million. Similar payment structure. 20-year term, Toyota licensing. $220 million. I wrote the numbers in my notebook. 340, 280, 220. Total, $840 million. Chen advanced to the next slide. We also discovered undisclosed licensing negotiations Mr. Drummond conducted without board approval. Blake's attorney stood. Objection? These were preliminary discussions. Your Honor, we have signed term sheets, Shen said. She displayed 3 documents. Chinese manufacturer names I recognized from aerospace trade publications. The 3 term sheets combine to $127 million. Mr. Drummond signed these personally, bypassing standard corporate approval processes. Judge Moreno looked at Blake. You negotiated licensing deals worth $127 million without informing your board of directors. Blake's hands gripped the edge of the defense table. Those were exploratory discussions, not binding agreements. Chen clicked to the next slide. Email correspondence between Blake and the Chinese manufacturers. Subject lines about payment schedules, royalty percentages, transfer procedures. The term sheets are dated between January and November 2023, Chen said. Mr. Drummond's signature appears on all 3. I wrote the number in my notebook. 127 million. Undisclosed. Judge Moreno removed her reading glasses, set them beside her coffee cup. Miss Chen, what is your recommended restitution calculation? Chen opened a binder. Mr. Sutherland owned 50% of Drummond Sutherland Engineering when he was forced out in 2006. His share of the $840 million in confirmed licensing revenue would be $420 million. $420 million. I wrote it down. However, Mr. Drummond paid $47,000 in the original buyout. We subtract that amount. $419,953,000. Chen advanced to the next slide. We recommend punitive damages of $73 million based on the willful nature of the fraud and the systematic erasure of Mr. Sutherland's contributions over 18 years. Lost investment returns calculated at average market rates from 2006 through present total $12 million. Judge Moreno made notes on her legal pad. Total restitution, $504,953,000, Your Honor. The number filled my notebook page. I underlined it twice. Blake's attorney approached the bench. Your Honor, this would bankrupt my client completely. We request consideration of payment schedule flexibility. Your client committed federal fraud, Judge Moreno said. Asset forfeiture is mandatory for proceeds of crime. She signed the restitution order. The Scottsdale estate, purchased in 2019 using patent royalties, is seized. All investment portfolios derived from licensing revenue are forfeited. Color drained from Blake's face. His hand moved to steady himself on the table edge. The Scottsdale estate was worth $4.3 million. 7,800 square feet, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Pinnacle Peak. Judge Moreno continued. The Patek Philippe Nautilus watch, purchased at auction in 2019 for $180,000, is specifically ordered, auctioned with all proceeds directed to the Federal Defrauded Inventors Fund. Blake's bare wrist moved. His hand covered where the watch used to sit. The gesture was automatic, protective, but the watch was gone. Seized 3 months ago as evidence. I wrote it down. Patek Philippe. Public auction. Deliberate humiliation. Dr. Tanaka had submitted Blake's biography collection as evidence weeks earlier. First editions of Edison, Ford, Jobs. $180,000 spent on books he'd marked up with, margin notes comparing himself to them. The prosecution called it evidence of delusional self-perception. The criminal sentencing hearing began at 1400 hours. Same courtroom, different purpose. Blake stood before Judge Moreno's bench. His attorney beside him. The gallery was fuller now. James Kovash from Tesla, executives from GM and Toyota, Angela Reese with her reporter's notebook. Tyler sat in the back row. Marissa was beside him. My daughter had come to witness Blake's sentencing, though she wouldn't look at me. Mr. Drummond, you've been convicted of making false statements to a federal agency under Title 18, United States Code, Section 101, Judge Moreno said. The sentencing guidelines recommend 46 to 57 months. Blake's attorney opened his briefing folder. Your Honor, my client has no prior criminal history. We request consideration at the lower end of the guidelines. Your client committed systematic fraud over 18 years, Judge Moreno said. He stole another man's life's work. He lied to federal patent examiners. He deceived his own board of directors. She opened a file. Blake's biography collection inventory. The prosecution entered your margin notes as evidence, Judge Moreno said. You compared yourself favorably to Edison. You highlighted passages about visionaries versus technicians. You wrote in the margins that history remembers innovators, not the people who built their inventions. Blake's hands trembled. The soft hands that never assembled a prototype, never ran a tolerance test, never calculated differential equations at 3:47 in the morning. This court sentences you to 63 months in federal prison, Judge Moreno said. You are remanded to custody immediately. 2 U.S. Marshals approached the defense table. Blake stood. His attorney's hand landed on Blake's shoulder. Blake jerked away, the chair scraping backward. The marshals led him toward the side exit. Blake looked back once. Tyler sat motionless in the gallery. Marissa was crying. Neither of them moved. The courtroom doors closed behind him. Rebecca Drummond had faced her own civil liability hearing 2 months earlier, before Blake's sentencing. She sat with her own attorney, corporate litigation specialist. Expensive suit. The prosecuting attorney presented Rebecca's fraudulent financial analysis from 2006, the document that justified Blake's $47,000 buyout. Pre-revenue company with technical debt, manufacturing tolerances, making scaling impossible. Mrs. Drummond, you created this analysis knowing it misrepresented the company's actual value? Rebecca's voice was steady. Professional. I prepared the analysis based on information Blake provided. I was following his instructions as CFO. You're a forensic accountant. You knew the patent had significant commercial potential. I trusted my husband's assessment of the technical viability. Her attorney distributed financial records showing Rebecca's separate accounts. Assets held in her name only. Legal separation filed 3 weeks after the fraud verdict. Rebecca left the courthouse alone. Blake was in federal custody. Their marriage dissolved 6 weeks later. The Drummond Solutions Board meeting was called for March 3rd. Emergency session. I heard about it from Dr. Tanaka, who heard from James Kovacs. The vote was unanimous. Blake Drummond removed as CEO and from all company positions. Effective that day. The press release went out at 1600 hours. Drummond Solutions announces leadership transition and corporate rebranding to distance from recent legal matters involving former executive. Blake's name disappeared from the marketing materials, the website, the company history. Tyler received the separation agreement by email. His father's 18-year legacy erased in a single board vote. Angela Reese's article had run 2 weeks before sentencing. The headline filled half the page of the Technology Journal's front section. The engineer who built the future from a van. 17 years living in a Walmart parking lot while the man who stole his invention built a mansion in Scottsdale. The photography showed my van, the origami cranes on the dashboard, the waterproof case that held the technical drawings for almost 2 decades. The article went viral. 30 million views in 48 hours. Blake Drummond's name became synonymous with patent fraud. Graham Sutherland became the symbol of inventor exploitation. Blake entered federal prison on March 24, 2024. Minimum security facility in Safford, Arizona. 57 months. Release date December 2028. The auction house sold Blake's biography collection for $42,000. The margin notes where he compared himself to Edison were cited in the buyer's catalog as evidence of delusional self-perception. The Scottsdale estate sold for $3.1 million, applied toward restitution. The Patek Philippe watch went to auction April 8th. Final bid $207,000. Every penny went to the Federal Defrauded Inventors Fund. Blake's empire collapsed in 4 months. The house, the watch, the company, the marriage, the freedom. The math was precise. Complete, documented. I folded another crane that night. Receipt from the courthouse cafeteria. 17 folds, each one exact. The paper became a crane. Something with my fingerprints in every crease. Something no one could claim they invented. The apartment had 2 bedrooms. The second held a desk, a bookshelf with engineering references, and the paper crane collection from the van, days 47 in total, each one documented in my notebooks. 17 folds. Precise creases. The receipt paper had yellowed after 12 months on my desk at Tesla. March 2025, 12 months after the verdict. I lived in Phoenix again, modest 2-bedroom near the original lab facility. The van went to a homeless veterans organization in February. Someone else could use it now. Marissa arrived at 1400 hours. 3rd Saturday of the month. Same schedule we'd kept since June 2024. She carried a package of origami paper, metallic sheets in blue and gold. Brought better material, she said. I cleared the kitchen table. We sat across from each other. She pulled out a blue sheet, folded the first diagonal crease. Her hands moved slowly, checking the angle, adjusting. Fold 3 needs sharper precision, I said. She redid it. The crease lined up. The metallic paper held angles better than receipts from the van. Her 3rd attempt matched perfectly. She set it beside mine without comment. We worked for 30 minutes. No conversation, just paper transforming between our hands. She finished a crane. Set it beside mine. The proportions matched. Better, I said. She nodded. The Carl Winters Engineering Documentation Fund announcement happened on a Tuesday. Community College Auditorium. 87 people attended. Lab technicians in their 50s and 60s. The generation Carl trained. Engineering students with notebooks open. 2 professors who'd worked with Carl at Arizona State. Carl sat in the front row wearing his best cardigan. His 18 notebooks were displayed in a glass case beside the podium. Black covers. Pre-numbered pages. Every signature visible through the glass. These notebooks saved my case, I told the audience. Proper documentation preserved truth for 17 years. This fund will train technicians in Navy standard protocols. Every calculation logged. Every test witnessed. Every signature dated. Carl stood when I finished. Shook my hand. His grip was firm despite the arthritis. 79 years old, and he'd outlasted Blake Drummond's empire by force of methodical record-keeping. Navy standard, he said. That's how truth survives. Angela Reese met me at the Tesla facility in Nevada. 1 year after her technology journal Expose that went viral. She recorded the interview on her phone. What would you tell a 23-year-old engineer about protecting their work? She asked. That notebooks are love letters to the future. Every calculation, every failure, every 3 a.m. breakthrough. That is the work that cannot be taken from you. Her recorder captured every word, her pen moving faster than during our first interview. The math does not lie. Truth has a texture to it, folds 13 through 17 on a crane. That is where structural integrity lives. Skip them, and it is just decorative. My Arizona State lecture covered documentation ethics. 42 students. I drew tolerance specifications on the whiteboard, showed them Carl's notebook photographs, explained how proper record-keeping proved authorship 17 years later. Blake Drummond could not fake my handwriting in the margins, could not reproduce calculations he never learned, could not explain the mathematics. I set chalk down. Your notebooks protect you when nothing else can. In the back row, a student worked blue paper between her hands. 17 folds. She held it up to check the proportions against the whiteboard diagram. The USPTO letter arrived in March 2025. Official correction to patent use 8847392B2. Graham Sutherland, listed as primary inventor. Blake Drummond's name removed from all records. I filed it in my desk drawer beside the single crane. The patent was corrected. The truth was documented. The rest was just paperwork.